Welcome to the Service to Syndication Podcast, where we interview the biggest and most successful real estate entrepreneurs, investors, capital raisers in the world who have worn the uniform of this great country, those who provide services to our men and women in uniform, and other service-oriented professionals to provide you with the tool sets, the mindsets, and the skill sets to help you conquer your dreams and goals in real estate and to use this wealth creation vehicle so you can live a more successful, happy, and fulfilled life of generosity and prosperity. If what you desire is time, lifestyle, and financial freedom, you've come to the right place. We will bring to you the best real estate entrepreneurs who will give you the insights, the knowledge, experience, skills, so you can go out and crush it in whatever real estate asset class you desire. So grab a pencil and paper, sit back, and enjoy the ride on the Service to Syndication Podcast. Hello, my servicemen and women and other service providers. Welcome to another episode of the Service to Syndication Real Estate Podcast, where we interview the most successful real estate entrepreneurs, investors, capital raisers in the world. Where most have donned the uniform of this great country, we aim to provide the tool sets, the mindsets, the skill sets for you to achieve your personal and business goals while using real estate as a wealth creation vehicle to help you live a more successful, happy, and fun-filled life. I'm super excited today because I have with me Mr. Nathan Cross, who is a top-notch real estate investor and property manager. Before I properly introduce our exciting guest to you, I just want to ask a favor of you. Please, if you get some value out of this interview, if you get some type of insight, mindset shift, if you learn a new skill, new information, receive inspiration or motivation to go out and take some action to make some progress in your life, please share this episode with some of your friends. Send it to someone you know who might be interested in real estate. Share it on your social media, post it on your wall, or share it on your stories. Help us spread our message while you help others. For all of you who share this episode, I want to say thank you. Again, everyone, like I said, we have Mr. Nathan Cross. So, Real Property Management Endeavor is owned and operated by Nathan Cross, a seasoned and experienced leader with 20 years of service in the United States Army, with 10 years being in the special operations community. Real Property Management Endeavor's goals is to provide professional services in multiple aspects of real estate investing. They are the company for clients looking to maximize their profits, reach long-term financial goals, and limit risk exposure while investing in real estate. Real Property Management Endeavor's core values start with integrity, which they believe is the most valuable commodity to have. This is the foundation on which their core values are built upon. Real Property Management Endeavor value building strong business relationships over profits and ensuring their employees and vendors always feel valued for the work they put in. Commitment to Real Property Management Endeavor investors, tenants, vendors, and community is paramount in order to give everyone the best customer satisfaction required. Real Property Management Endeavor understands without their customers, they would not have a business. Reliability will be synonymous with the company's name, ensuring we do what we say and say what we do. All right. Nathan, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Cedric, for having me on. I appreciate the intro. It's a lot of stuff that you put on me. I really appreciate it. It's kind of something that, like you said, being in service for 20 years, there's a lot of things that you got to do. Integrity is probably the highest commodity that anybody that puts on a uniform from the day you get off that bus. Starting basic training, right? They teach you all that integrity, honor, discipline, and all that stuff. But you don't really have any integrity. I think everything else kind of falls by the wayside, right? I mean, you've been in the service before, right? You can see the guys that can and gals that can fake the funk for a couple weeks, couple months, but eventually they're true colors kind of come out, because can't change a chameleon skin too much. So
100%. Yeah. So, all right, Nathan, the first thing that I do with my guests is that I ask them to walk us through their real estate journey in 75 seconds or less.
okay, I'll try 75 seconds or less. But so my real estate journey kind of started probably like a lot of most people's, or any type of financial freedom, right? You listen or heard about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? I was deployed to Afghanistan, and I was like, okay, I need to get something to fill my time in between, our shifts and mission sets. So I actually had a hard copy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I kind of read it again. And I was thinking, because I was still finishing my college degree, and I'm like, what am I going to do when I retire and I have to grow up, right? When I'm retired out of the military. So I had to figure it out, right? So I knew, okay, I still need to finish school, right? And I need to figure out how to be better with the money that I have, right? And then that will give me a little bit more options, and it's, some people don't agree with it. I know people talk about all the time, talking about money is taboo, has been taboo. It's not taboo in my house anymore. We talk about money all the time, right? What's it cost? I talk to my team members, my employees, especially the younger ones. But that's what it was. That's what it was. I mean, and then we figured, okay, let's do rentals. But it was kind of like, hey, we're not going to stay here very long, because the last duty station was Bragg, and I had to figure out how to commit. And then we just looked, and I was like, okay, well, we can flip houses. That's quick. That's easy. We don't need the money. We can just kind of build our war chest, is what I called it. And that's what we kind of started doing, was flipping houses. And then that got into wholesaling, networking with the right people, being kind of like their point of contact to find these deals, because I was looking for deals to flip. Didn't meet my flip criteria, but they were great rental properties. And then again, stored up a lot of cash. And then I decided, okay, I need to do something, and then wanted to stay in real estate, and figured property management could touch all aspects of it. I didn't realize that how sometimes property management is a very tough, it's a tough job. Kind of sometimes, the margins are super slim, but I think if you leverage that in the correct way with relationship building, and then knowing, especially, vendors, contractors, architects, inspectors, right? When you start buying your own rental properties and starting to do all these other things, you already know these people. You already have a relationship with them. So transition into buying more properties, bigger properties, doing something in your network or out of network, right? Because everything is similar, the same, regardless of what state you're in. It's just the fine nuances of what the building and code inspectors are going to require in every state and municipality. So, and that's what kind of happened. So hopefully that was 75 seconds.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So, just for our listeners, just please tell them, what market do you currently service or that you're in?
Oh, yeah. So we are in the St. Louis market, right? So we operate in the greater St. Louis area and the kind of surrounding counties of St. Louis. So we do stuff in the city, and we do stuff in the outskirts.
Okay. So now let's talk a little bit about your property management operation. So first and foremost, why property management?
Well, just like I was saying earlier, I networked with a couple people when I was flipping houses, and that kind of a buddy of mine, RJ, he was a service member like me, and he bought rental properties, didn't really know what to do with them. He knew it was a good idea. And then he figured, well, I'm going to manage mine. Why can't I manage others? So he got his real estate license, started he was doing the rehab. So he kind of branched out, had property management as the core, and he's got a brokerage, and then he's got maintenance. He's got a construction company. So that was kind of like, okay, that's exactly what I was thinking, was trying to find something in it. So, property management is the core foundation of like us building out, right? And then the brokerage is kind of like the next step, because we want to bring in agents that are going to be tailored to investor clients, which I know a lot of people say, hey, I'm an investor friendly agent. Well, like how investor friendly are you? Do you own rental properties? Do you kind of understand a little bit of how rehabs go, right? Inspections, and because in a great state of Missouri and St. Louis here, they have this little thing called an occupancy inspection. Whether you get a property already inspected by the city and municipality, guess what? You got to call for another inspection for occupancy, which is a little ridiculous, right? And every municipality has their own people that do it, and you have to get that certificate emailed to you before you can put it properly listed for rent. So that's like another caveat, right? So a lot of people don't know that when they kind of invest in this market. So But yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. So like I said, we have that going on. I mean, I have an in-house maintenance team. I have some subs. I mean, eventually, um, getting the construction portion kind of moved out of this company, right, into something kind of on its own, is like the third phase. We just have to, we have to get our one more broker, right, to get that started, and we can kind of branch out from there. But when you're building things, you wear a lot of hats, and then you got to find the right people, and then I'm a big systems and processes type of person, so it's a slow crawl, right? But nothing good happens quickly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, between your own portfolio and your owners, how many units do you currently manage?
Well, combined it is, I think I looked last week, we are up to 198 doors. So that's spanning from single family, multifamily, residential to commercial. We do also manage a couple office spaces as well. So like we'll manage anything within the realm of real estate. We're not really gonna fixate on anything, or one type of asset class. You know what I mean? It just has to make sense for us, and as well as the client, for our
Okay.
team to manage it.
Okay. Okay. I think you kind of broached this next question a little bit, the answer to it. But are you guys currently vertically integrated?
So like you're talking about, like somebody like yourself has a syndication team, and we're integrated with their team all the time.
No. So like your own portfolio, you
Mm-hmm.
have like contractors that work for you, basically, that
Mm-hmm.
work for you. They're on your you know, they work for you. And
Right.
so that you employ them to go out and work on your projects, or at this point, even other owners, or do you
Oh yeah,
just
we have
sub them out?
so we have in-house guys that work directly for me, so they'll work on my portfolio, clients' portfolios, and stuff like that. And then we do have subs because, again, um, you know, you can't you have to be a licensed AC guy, right, and a licensed electrician, a licensed plumber, and then St. Louis County and St. Louis City, they only hand out those master plumbers and master electrician licenses. They have a quota. So for us to start off with building like a construction company, right, we'd have to bring in somebody or have people that are skilled enough to do the job, and our master plumber, right, will sign off on their work. That's a point about building relationships, is that most of these guys that are master plumbers, they have their own shop, right, or they work for somebody else and they're running crews and they're getting paid very well, right? So it's like, okay, if we can't pay them very well, or they want to run their own teams and have their own company, the
Okay.
best bet is to have that relationship with them. Like we have a relationship with our electricians, where now it's come down that a licensed electrician has to replace outlets and switches, which is ridiculous. Yes, but again, we have that relationship with the electricians and our plumbers, that we have guys on our team that can do the work, right? And they will be able to sign off on the work. They'll pull the plumber permit for us, right? They'll come because, again, they trust us, because they know we're not going to go and do anything kind of shady. If we find a problem, like which we did last week, my guy Joe found a problem on a property when we were going through with Section 8. Because here's another caveat, right? You go through the inspection for the house to get it good to go for buildings and codes. Then you pull a permit for occupancy, it's good. Now you got to deal with Section 8's walkthrough inspection, right? So the owner did all the rehab himself, right? So we checked everything. Then we went back. Well, then they had problems with their electric, right? When we went there with the inspector, we found issues. And my guy Joe found a wall where he, because again, we trained them, and he went there and it was hot, meaning like it was hot to the touch when he was over there checking it. So we told the owner we're not going to replace because they were not grounded. So instead of going to a 3-prong, we could go back to a 2-prong outlet. Well, we told him we won't do that. Or I told him, don't tell him we're going to do that, because there's a problem with the 2 outlets in the wall where it's hot. So we need to get the electrician in. So instead of us doing it and saying, hey, we can go do this and make the profit, we handed it off to our electrician because we know that's the right thing to do. Right. Because we don't want any liability if we knew there was a problem, we went around it and just did it the most cheaply way and charge our client whatever the cost was, right? Either the cheap cost or a higher cost. But if a fire would have caught, we would have been liable for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So long story short, we can't integrate those guys into the company. So we have a lot of guys with high skill sets, but they're not licensed trades. So we
Yeah.
won't be able to integrate those guys unless, we figure a way to partner up with them and build a construction company with some of these guys that hold those permits, those master licenses. So.
Okay. Yeah, that goes back to that core value that I mentioned earlier, with regards to your company, integrity. You guys knew that there was a problem and you guys were not going to just pass this on. You wanted to fix the problem properly, because down the road, God forbid, something happened, you move someone in, and all of a sudden there's a fire at that property.
Correct.
You didn't want to be held liable. And that's great. It goes again back to integrity.
Yeah. This is going to be a 4-bedroom house that the tenant, they are on, Section 8 government assistance, and they have a voucher for that. So there will be small children living in that house, right? Single mother, small children will live there. So it's one of those things I just won't be able to sleep well at night knowing that we did it wrong to make a profit, right?
Absolutely.
Because if we would have done it in-house, of course, our profit margin is a lot higher, right? But, we're going to go ahead and give it to our electrician, which our client knows we're going to give it to the electrician. So, of course, our profit is going to be set at a different rate. But again, it's never always about the profit. The profit is good. I mean, that's how you keep a business open, and that's how you pay your team, right? But at the end of the day, it's still, can you leverage yourself with making a profit knowing you probably should not have? You should have done something different for the safety of other people.
Okay. So, have you had a contractor that didn't live up to your expectations? And if so, what did you do to
mitigate that for the
yeah.
So like everybody who started in real estate, right? You found somebody who thought they were trustworthy and you didn't get a document signed. You weren't on contract, right? That was it. So that meant, like, again, I was a pretty handy guy, right? I mean, I started in real estate as by accident. I kind of turned the house I lived in, sad military story, especially the time I was in, got divorced. So I still lived in this house. I changed it, ended up being kind of like a halfway house for guys, they're, the kind of guys were living there. And I'm like, got tired of living with roommates, got another house, kind of fixed that up. So, I was pretty handy, did the first flip in there and hired somebody, didn't have anything really on a contract. They were good. I mean, but I had to go in there and do a lot of the work myself to save costs or fix the problem. So I learned from that you got to get everything on contract. So now, moving forward now, it's like any contractor that we've never used. And even the contractors that we still let they sign an agreement, really like an undisclosure. It's like, hey, we're going to pay you for this job. The timeline starts here, and it basically has a draw schedule and a penalty if they're a penalty if they miss timeline. And if they won't sign it, then they're not the contractors we're going to use.
Okay. All right. Great. So that kind of actually leads into my next question. What processes and procedures do you have that make your operation perform efficiently?
I mean, we have tons of stuff that we do. It's always a fine-tuning process. It really starts with, bringing in remote team members, right, to kind of to do some of the back-end work, right? And again, it's just about the screening process. And then with our administrative staff that we bring in, again, it's an evolution of growing pains, but they have what we call a 10-day workup, right? So we hire them, we vet them, we hire them through another company. And then they come in through our team, right? And they have a 10-day, meaning that it's like in the military. Again, I'm not going to break anything that still works, right? No need to recreate the wheel, but I know that every training event kind of has like a workup, and then there's like every hour of the day is counted for something. So our admin team that we bring on has a 10-day workup where every hour is accounted for, right? Anybody that we bring in-house, we just do 2 weeks of ride-alongs. Right, meaning they're going to ride along with somebody on their daily duties and kind of see what they do and where, kind of learn where they're going to put in place, right? And everyone that we hire, we start them off as 1099 with a 90-day contract. Because again, I still live by that thing. Like, hey, everyone can fake the funk for 90 days, right? Because after a while, you're going to start seeing if they're going to be able to keep up that pace, right? Everyone starts off with good intentions, at least the good people. But it's the same thing. subcontractors that we bring on to do work, they sign that contract, and then anybody that we try out for our in-house team, right? It's the same thing. Everyone starts off somewhere, right? It's always the way it is, and then we kind of figure out if they're a good fit or they're not. Like Gary Vee says, quick to hire, faster to fire. It's just kind of the way it works out, right? Because again, you just need to go ahead and just put your ego in check if you're doing all the hiring. You just need to understand, like, every system process you have to recreate it, because it should be a living, breathing process. It's never set in stone, right? And then anybody that you bring in on your team, you have to have a process for them to kind of understand and work inside the parameters, but then give them the level, the lanes to be able to make changes. And if they want to make changes, you should ask them, hey, why are we making this change? Why do you recommend it? With a little bit of back and forth with our team for why operational things need to change, right? And then sometimes you need to explain why the operational process is not going to change, because they may not be looking at the second and third order effect of making a said decision, right? But again, you're never going to see everything. So that's where you have to rely on your team to kind of like figure out like what the problem is. And that's kind of where our 10-day workup for our admin team members came in, because I got with some of our senior admin team members. It's like, hey, what was the reasons why you don't think you are grasping us fast enough, right? So I took their notes. We had meetings. I put it in. I developed kind of a schedule. I sent it to them. I said, hey, give me back your notes. Like, look at this. Let's set a time for us to talk. Let's get into a meeting one-on-one, and we'll go through your recommendations, and then we'll go from there.
Nice. See, that's one thing about being in the military. We all have processes and procedures for almost everything that we do. And I see now that you've carried that right over into your business, and that's super. I love seeing that. Just like almost anyone else that I talk to, there are those processes and procedures that you have. We in the military, of course, standard operating procedure, same thing.
Right. You gotta have something. Like, you know what I mean? If you've been in the military long enough, you saw things that worked and you saw things that didn't work, right?
Yeah.
And then you just gotta use the stuff that you thought that worked. That worked. You know what I mean? Like, we have a meeting twice a week right now. It's just kind of our sync meeting. It's pretty much, there's slides that the team has to update. It's pretty much like a standard bub, right? It's just a meeting to talk about updates, high priority items, right? Who's moving in, on or onboarding status, on or offboarding status, property integration. Do we have a tenant? Did a letter get dropped off? Do we have keys? So it's like all these things that happen, right, that have to be kind of checked on, and that slide deck, that bub is really, I made that thing just because I want to be able to still be here, but I don't need to be running. Like, I don't need to have my hand in every aspect of something, right? So this is like, I'm building it to where, like, hey, it's kind of like, I don't really have to be here for a meeting, right? I can look at the slide deck, right, and find out what's going on, right? And then be like, hey, ask these questions, like, what's going on with this? So I'm trying to build it to where, I am not the key focal point. Like, the meeting goes on without me if I'm not here, right? There's things that they have to talk about, like they have to get the stuff, and then I can just drop it and check. We're not at that point yet, right? When I started the business, I finally not really took a vacation, but my oldest son graduated basic training a few months ago. So that was the first time I was gone for like a week. I mean, I was still working, right? If you run a business, whether it's, unless it's a huge business, right? You're still in the growing phase. So you're still going to be taking phone calls. You're still going to be looking at emails. The team members are still going to reach out to you with questions, because you still have to be available, right? And then there's sometimes you just got to be like, hey, nope, you should know the process of this, or, hey, you need to contact, I told him, hey, if you got a question, get with Joe first before you reach out to me. Because again, it was like a test run for Joe to see if he can handle kind of with everything that was going on for that week.
Okay. So, kind of like off of that, how often are you physically on the premises of some job that you guys have? And what would make you come out to a job?
So I usually do the initial intakes of new properties, especially if we know there's big construction. I'll bring over one of the guys that's in kind of like, getting them to look at certain things, right? Asking them questions. So usually most of the time I'm still doing probably about 80% of the walkthroughs for big jobs, right? Like, we're doing turns and rehabs and stuff like that. Like, I'll do the initial, I build a scope of work. I build out the job description and do all that stuff. And then, but the in-house guys, I print them off the scope of work, meaning that at any time, we're going to schedule that weekly or whatever walkthrough, then you guys need to be able to go through this. You know what I mean? And then there's a folder on our drive that has literally 1235 Main Street, it has the date, and inside that folder has a drop folder in there with all the photos with blue tape, and then has a scope of work by rooms, by line item. So it's like, okay, you have to be able to look at this and kind of understand, but if we have any questions, then let's go schedule this. When I'm going, you need to clear your schedule or work around it, or you need to meet me at the property during that timeline so we can go through it. Again, I'm not going to set it up that way. I'll drag guys just to make sure to check the block they're getting it, but I want to see who's hungry enough to learn more.
Okay.
I'm still doing a lot of it. Right? Long story short, I'm still doing a lot of it, but there are things that guys are still going to go do, and they might have some questions, which is fine. You know what I mean? They're not going to catch everything because I've been doing real estate or some type of form of like rehab for over 10 years, right? And there's still stuff that that I haven't seen. So I'm not like an expert, but you know what I mean? They'll be able to questions that I could ask them to troubleshoot stuff, like when my new guy Joe was here, he got on there, he was checking some electrical stuff. He was replacing the dryer cord for the new one, right? Because I got a new washer and dryer and it's pretty easy. Like I showed him how to do it. Well, it arced, right? So luckily he wasn't hurt, right? So that's the best thing, right? But it threw the breakers and everything. He called me and he's like talking really fast, like, Joe, you gotta just shut up real quick. Listen to what I'm telling you. So I was like, go to the circuit breaker panel and turn off every circuit breaker, right? Everything, including the main. I said, okay. So we kind of walked him through. So we turned on the main. I said, now we're going to go walk through. You're going to only flip on one breaker at a time. Leave the breakers for the, downstairs and for the laundry room. You're going to do that last. And that's pretty much what he had to do, was just go and turn on every single one and go make sure all the lights were, bring the tester that he had and went to go test everything. And, that was it. But, again, that's just practice and, experience on it. But then we had to go get another, a different style of dryer plug adapter, because that was provided to us by the owner, right? Which they got off Amazon. Not knocking what they got off Amazon, but they got it, right? It just didn't work, right? Because it was just arced. So he plugged everything in correctly. It's not very hard, right? As soon as he went there to go plug it in, it arced. And he had no idea. So he was flipping out because he thought he did something wrong. But this level of experience, and I was able to do that with him over the phone, right? But again, that's just something I told him. It's not a big deal, man. You're just going to have to know this. And you never experienced it. Now you know, and you'll always remember what you got to do next time when something like this happens. So
absolutely. So now let's kind of turn to your investing. What class of assets are you investing in, and what type areas are they? B areas, C classes, C class areas, or D class areas?
So my style, it's just rentals, or pretty much rental properties. B minus, C plus areas right now, right? I think there's a good need for that type of housing. It's been a little bit rocky. Everybody's still people investing with this, right? Again, I'm a pretty big numbers guy when it comes to things, right? I'm very conservative when I run my numbers, so I like to be pleasantly surprised when the appraisal happens, right? Because was doing a lot more BRRRR methods, because again, I was flipping houses, so it made more sense to get this thing at a very good deal, right? And upgrade it and get it off with a higher appraisal. So those are pretty much mainly the ones I have. I don't have a big, huge portfolio because, again, my portfolio grows. Like I'd like to buy 1-2 houses a year, right? Depending on if I can get a deal. So I BRRRR them. I get a lot of equity in it. I just don't take any, I keep all the meat in there, and that's okay, right? I look into making contact with an owner that I know through a family friend that owns storage facility, and they're looking to sell it. I found out that they're getting a divorce, and kind of know them through family friends. So maybe we can get some type of sweetheart deal, right, where everybody wins. And I could, but I got to get to talking to them before I can figure out the operations, and I'll bring it to my network of people. Like, hey, they have this, I can run the deal here, right? We just need to raise the capital, right? And we know people who's got excess cash, and they'll invest it with us because they know who we are. So I am not opposed to investing in any type of asset class as long as you can make a profit on it. Like,
Okay.
with me not putting a lot of money into real estate, like I've actually loaned out money to people for, to finish out the rehabs, people that, I've loaned out money to guys because I'm in the hobby of saltwater tanks, right? Fish
Yeah.
tanks. So there's guys that are doing like little small startups. I'll loan them a little bit of money at 12%, 10%, because they got to buy some stuff and they got to sell corals or fish just to get them over the hump, right? So I'm kind of opportunistic in a way. If, the business plan makes sense and I can get my money back in 6 months, I don't really need to make a huge profit, but get somebody else over the hump and still put my money to work, that's okay with me. So anything that makes sense to where everyone makes a profit, that's, legally. I'll say that legally because I know there's people out there doing illegal things where you make lots of profit, but again, any legal venture where I can put, put $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 to somebody and make 10 to 12%, I'm good with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So how are you finding these investment opportunities?
So same thing. I mean, we do mailers, right? That's a long, I always tell people it's a little bit of a longer play, right? Because you got to touch those people, touch points with them a couple times, right? And you just got to get your mailer, right? Or your phone call, right? Or your name needs to be brought up at the right instance. So any avenue where you're trying to reach out, again, you have to have credibility, right? That's the biggest thing because there's tons of people right now that, I'm not taking it away from social media because social media is a good tool if used, but it could also be used for evil, right? A lot of people will show their highlights and never like their losses, right? Like, oh, I can, especially like with wholesaling deals, like, you can make all this money with no experience and no money, but then they forget that, like, hey, they got to be driving for dollars or they got to be door knocking or they got to start networking with people, right? They forget about that time where you're doing that and you're not making any money, right? So it's, we do the mailers, we talk to people, we always let people know we're looking for stuff so that if something comes up, I want to see it, or at least send me an email, something, right? And that's usually about it. I mean, that's nothing fancy. I know when I was stationed at Bragg, Lead Sherpa was kind of like this new tech, kind of like that thing where, you were downloading skip trace and putting that information in, you were sending text messages in masses, right? But physically somebody had to hit that enter key. It was really great. You know what I mean? Before I got into that, because again, I was grinding, I was trying to find houses, I was afford to skip trace it, right? Then I got a burner phone is what I call it. You know what I mean? A second cell phone because I started out with the Google Voice, but guess what? I got feedback that, you sound kind of shady. Like, why are you calling a Google Voice?
Yeah.
Right? So, okay, that made sense. So let me go ahead and spend a little bit, extra money to get me another simple smartphone. And I literally was hammering text messages to numbers on a sheet, right? Building a mini script that I built inside of like a notepad in there and just copy and paste it, right? And then Lead Sherpa came and we started doing it that way, right? Because massive text. But when you start doing stuff like that and people reach out to you, like, they think that you're a fraud. I mean, if you're a local person, right? That's how we kind of got one of our last flips before I retired out of Bragg, was literally driving to a flip right in the neighborhood. And this lady put a for sale sign up, for sale by owner. I called it. Met her there, brought my wife there. Like, yeah, we had to try. Somebody said they were going to come and buy it and it fell through. And I'm like, well, we understand. I was like, you're more than welcome. We got that flip right down the street if you want to just take a drive with us and I can show you the old pictures of what it looked like, because it was almost done. So again, proof of concept, right?
Yeah.
Are you a legitimate person on it? But that's why probably I don't really invest too much in as of yet and not in my own backyard, right? Because I want to be able to tell people like, oh yeah, hey, this is what we do. We manage this, we remodel this house, we flip this house, this is one of our rental properties, stuff like that. And then you can kind of branch out into other markets, right? Because you still have a portfolio of work as proof, right? So just depends. Again, my model, the way I do it, maybe a little bit slower for most people, but I'm okay with that.
Slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah, it does. I mean, hopefully it does. But like I said, I think just over time, it just depends. Again, it depends on what your goal is, right? Do you want to be able to say I own 1,000 doors, right? Or I'm a GP in a deal, or hey, you know what I mean? I own 150 rental properties, right? I mean,
hey, thank you for tuning in to the Service to Syndication Podcast. If you are a military service man or woman, government employee, or any other service-related professional, this is for you. I once was where you are. As a service member, I lived paycheck to paycheck. As a government employee, I knew there was more out there for me. I tried all the get-rich-quick schemes. None of them worked. Then a friend of mine introduced me to real estate investing. I am a commercial multifamily syndicator who helps those who have served in the military and those who provide services to our men and women in uniform and other service-oriented professionals achieve their time, lifestyle, and financial freedom by investing passively into multifamily real estate. If you know that this life has more in store for you, I invite you to tune into the Service to Syndication Podcast to learn the tools, tricks, and concepts to help you achieve the time, lifestyle, and financial freedom that comes with investing in real estate. So go over to cobbscreekcapital.us. That is COBBSCREEKCAPITAL.US and schedule a call so that we can get to know one another and see how we can work together to help you achieve your goals.
it just depends on what your goal is, or what you feel that your freedom, your financial freedom, or your mental freedom, or your time of freedom, right, is going to allow you to do, right? You have to make that decision. Nobody else can, like you were saying, nobody can tell you what's going to make you happy. If you're happy with having 5 rentals, right, and you bought them at good deals, and you're getting 300 net, right? When I mean net, that means you're getting 300 net, true cash flow, meaning that you put money aside for your reserves, right? You're paying a CPA or a good bookkeeper to run your books, right? So you're not going in here on QuickBooks and wasting, you know what I mean? Like, again, it depends on your time, right? So if you buy those good deals, then you're not doing some of that stuff, right? And that's what you got to look at. So what is going to make you happy? You know what I mean? Like owning 1,000 doors, owning like a storage unit, a car wash. I don't care. I'm not judging. It just depends on what you want. You know what I mean? Some people, they more. That's it. Okay. I watch Billions too. Yeah. I love that show. More. That's it. That's what I want. I want more. You're right. It just depends on what you want, and be happy with it. Don't chase what you see on TikTok and Instagram, right? Be happy with what you are. If you can get a small syndication deal, maybe partner with some people locally, right? Get that deal in, right? Show that you can acquire a 12-unit building, right? And get it stabilized. And then, you have something to go off of to be like, hey, okay, now let's get a 32. Now let's probably bring other people's money in, right? Because I think people sometimes forget, you're going to be fiduciary responsible for somebody's money, right? Money can be gained back. Your reputation, never. That's going to be stained. You're going to be stained, right? You can't put enough, Old Spice body wash on you in the shower to get that stench off, right? Like you can't. You're never going to be able to do it. So it's like, is the deal really worth? Like, are you, do they have the right people on their team, right? Do they have the parts and experience? Do they have the people on the ground there to do the work? Like how much, on there? If you're just an investor in the deal, right? You should be asking those guys presenting the deal those questions. And if they can't answer those questions truthfully to you, then it's okay. Maybe they don't have that level of experience. Maybe they don't know the answers. Not everybody knows. If they say they're going to get back with you with that, then hopefully they do get back with you. But again, you're giving the money there. They're accepting your money. It's just a whole transaction. Even when I was flipping houses, I was getting guys that I knew for 15 years, served time with them overseas, and they were out doing contract work in Syria and Yemen. And we put it on a contract. Like it was legitimately a contract between my company and them, right? That they gave me $40,000, $30,000, $50,000 on a deal that they were going to get their money, and they're considered preferred returns. They get their money before I would get mine. Because I did not want their old lady coming down to my house asking me what was going on with their money. You know what I mean? While their husband was downrange. So it just didn't make any sense to me. But we did everything legitimately and legally to keep it above bar. So
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, you can't get your reputation back. You just can't, because believe it or not, word gets around. Word gets around. Cedric didn't pay me back. Cedric
Right.
didn't pay me back. And this person tells that person that tells that person. So when I reach out to try to um, acquire funds for whatever deal,
Mm.
they're like, no, I'll pass.
Well, it also depends. Like, again, we're in a different type of market right now, right? Where a lot of people, and me myself included in this, it's like, everyone knew about real estate when it was just doing this. It was going up, right? You couldn't lose. You buy real estate, you can't lose. Well, now we're in a little bit of a different one, right? And a lot of people that have been doing it way longer than both of us, right? They've seen the downturn, right? Again, not every deal, as long as you're, I think as long as you're transparent with your clients, right? The people that invest in you, because that's what they're doing. They're investing in you,
Yeah,
right? The deal is the other portion, right? The deal has to make sense, right? But they're investing in you and your team, right? So you have to be able to be transparent with them, and things aren't going to work out, right? You have to plan for those contingencies.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that everybody doesn't do it, but I've seen a couple of deals come across where I'm like, hey, what about this? What about this? What about this? And it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, hey, yeah, the same. I get it. It's the rent it's suppressed rents. Okay, yeah, that's pretty standard. We're going to turn the units. Our estimate is to turn X, Y, and Z. Like, okay, that's cool. Do you have somebody who's going to turn it at that price? Or is that the price that you have to turn it to make a profit? You know what I mean? Like, how neglected was this property? How mismanaged was it? Those are kind of like the questions I have. And it's just like, hey, I'm good with helping you raise money or putting some money in it. But those are the questions that these guys that I know personally are going to ask. And if I can't tell them that, they're not going to put money in the deal.
mm-hmm.
They're going to invest in the deal because I'm like, hey, this is a good deal, right? Yep, here's all the things. Like, yep, this is what we're going to do. They're investing in it because I am in the deal and I'm telling you it's a good deal, right? That's what they're counting on.
Exactly.
And then if the deal doesn't go right, what's the plan? How are you going to get the people their money back? Because again, they are investing knowing that it's not a guaranteed deal, right? I know they signed the disclosures. I know that's kind of part of like the slide deck or the brief that you give them, right? Like, hey, this is still an investment. That's why you have to be an accredited investor, right? You have to meet that criteria, right? To know that you may lose money, right? But nobody likes to lose money. Nobody likes to be fleeced of money more than losing money, right? If a deal goes bad, a deal goes bad. But, what are you doing to try to make it right? And sometimes you can't do enough to make it right. You can only make it right just enough. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. That's spot on, because that's the main thing. People want capital preservation.
Mm-hmm.
It's great if they make an ROI on it, but as long as you don't lose them their money, they're fine with that. Yes, of course, they're investing. First and foremost, they're investing in you, and then they're investing to make some money on the deal. But most importantly, don't lose my money.
Right.
That's
They're
first
looking
and
to offset,
foremost.
looking to offset taxes. They want to do, cross, a lot of people are talking about cross segregation and all this kind of stuff. But like, how much experience do you have in it? Like, I know it's when it came out like about a year and a half ago, that's a really big, fancy terminology, cross segregation, like having somebody look at this and kind of forecasting depreciation at a different rate, and that's good for those guys that are trying to take their money and store it somewhere else so they're not getting taxed, right? They want all those tax benefits, right? But I mean, you got to make sure that if you're doing it, it's going to work out as you plan. You know what I mean? And, most of these people are, some people, not most of them, are using their IRAs, so it's like, okay, they know now they're making, X amount of percentage, right? They know they're being told, hey, we could use this. It'll be, you get your money back in 5 years, because everyone knows if they did the loan research, your loan for, commercial properties, 3 to 5 years. So you got to have an exit strategy. Are you all just paying just interest and not any principal? Like, again, that's why, it's good to get those big. You're like, oh, I invested in a 300 unit thing, but I'm like looking, again, it's my way I look at it. I'm good with getting a 12, a 10, my little piece of the pie. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I mean, if the deal is there and it's big and it makes sense, you know what I mean? If I'm in some type of syndication doing, helping somebody out, right? Like, have I walked the property? Like, because that's what I want to do. I want to go out there and walk it. I want to touch it. I want to see it. You know what I mean? I got to fly over there. If I'm going to I'm going to co-sign on it, put my name on it, I want to be able to tell people, Yeah, I was there. I looked at them. I'm like, I know. I walked through it. Yeah, it's bad. It's horrible. Right? Bad. But guess what? You know, you got to shine that turd a little bit. Maybe it'll start gleaming some. But there's opportunities out there. There's still opportunities out there. Just the footwork you got to do to find them.
That's it.
A little bit different now than it has been the last few years. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So you mentioned that you've done some flips, and I know you have some some buy and holds. What's your preference, flipping or buying and holding, and why?
I mean, so I flip for the cash to buy and holds, right? That's what I like to do. I want to buy something, I want to burn, which is pretty much like a flip, right? It doesn't have to go high end, but we put in nice enough stuff, right, to preserve the property. I started doing on some of mine, and then we've been doing on clients where, like, those Formica countertops, don't want to ever use them again. I always recommend to put butcher block in, right? Because it's more tough. It's just, if they put a hot pan on it, right, it may burn. Guess what? All you got to do is you just got to sand that down when it's time to do the turn, right? And kind of maybe put a little bit of wood putty in it, and then put that, what we call butcher block lotion on it, right? Okay. If you're not in an area, right, where, they're requiring, like, solid countertops, like, the best thing to do instead of buying the Formica, that's something that's kind of cheap, is you put the butcher block in it. Now, the ones that I have that still have Formica, they're still in good condition. I'm not gonna change it. I'm not gonna throw money away. But when it comes time to replace those Formica countertops, I'm gonna go with butcher block, right? And because it lasts longer. Like, we put it in a bunch of our clients' properties right now, and there's no problems with them. They're a little bit more expensive for mica, but it's a lot cheaper than solid. So I look at it, and I'd rather flip to build the capital, get that cash, and then put that cash to work in a buy and hold. That's my thing, right? You got to do something to actively generate income, right? Generate free cash, right? Okay. And then what you do with that free cash is you put it into something else. People have their W-2 income, right? So they use that W-2 income, they save a little bit for their Roth or their IRA or other investments, right? Because they're looking for that other vehicle to be passive, right? So it's the same thing in real estate, But a lot of people forget that real estate, if you're actively doing it, real estate, right, it's always going to be, it's not really that passive. I tell people, let's just be honest, it's full contact. If you're flipping houses, you have to continue to flip houses to generate income. If you're not flipping houses, you're not bringing in the income, right? If you have rental properties, you got to find more rental properties, right, to add to your stream of income that comes in. So you're actively either doing something, either you got somebody acquiring it, right? You may be very passively investing in real estate, meaning that you're funding it, but somebody else is actively, like, doing all the rest of the heavy lifting, but you still should be engaged, right, on the project overall, unless you pay for somebody to be engaged for you, right? So there's different levels. You could be completely hands off, right? You just find a deal. You got somebody who's got a team. They walk it. They do all this. You pay them to do that, right? But that's the biggest thing, and I get it. All investors are the same, not all of them, but they look to get the most value for the least amount of capital as possible, which is fine, right? But at what point are you sacrificing the quality of work for capital and then having to go back and redo the work? Because I'm sure there's a ton of your listeners and a ton of people that have gone the cheap route or the cheaper route, and they bit him in the butt, and they had to go back and fix it all again, and they cost them more money, and they lost more time. And if you're holding an asset, well, guess what? Now you're paying taxes, utilities, all these things, are on the clock. Because every month something's due. Your hard money loan's due, your mortgage, right? Or if you had all your cash, right? That means your cash you just now deployed is sitting there not making you any money, right? Or if you're, starting out and you're getting all these credit cards open up 0 lines of credit, right? Or whatever the case, there's still a bill that's due, right? Whether it's a financial bill, right? Or it's money you have, and it's time. Because again, time is something you'll never get back.
Yep.
Never get back.
100%. Yeah, I've been that guy where, one of my rental properties, I've like taken that cheaper route, and then all of a sudden you got to go back and redo it. If I would have just spent the money the first time,
Yep.
I would have saved time.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, sometimes deals are not as juicy and meaty as they were a couple years ago. I get it, right? So there's a little bit of a liability or a financial constraint on doing something, but then if you're in that position, then I tell clients, like, I just had a client call me this morning. They had to come down here this weekend to go fix 2 of their houses that were mismanaged because when we walked, it says, hey, we got all this stuff wrong. They were smoking, right? They had dogs they weren't supposed to. So, like, we recommend to paint this, paint that, don't do, and they showed up today, called in this morning. He's like, yeah, man, I could smell everything that you were telling me over the phone. I'm like, I'm not making it up. I'm not trying to sell you for us to get work, right? I'm telling you, like, it's up to you as the client, right? Because I tell them it's still America. You don't want to do it that way, that's perfectly fine. But understand, when you put that house on the market, that is what everyone right now is looking for. If I'm going to spend money, right, to live in a place and rent, right, isn't going to be worth that, because we all know right now the money is not, everyone's tight, right? Financially tight, just because we got inflation. So your dollar does not stretch as far. So, I tell clients, like, hey, if you've got the time and well, what's your time worth? Right? And they got to make that decision. He told me, he's like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here. I'll probably have a list of stuff for your guys to knock out when we get done. I'm like, yeah, too easy. We'll take care of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But, sometimes you just got to let people do what they got to do. And that's good that he's down here with his wife and his father-in-law or whoever, right? They'll figure it out. It wasn't like we were making it up, but, everybody's dollar right now is like, no, it's not going. So you just got to figure it out, right? Yeah. Buy a deal that wasn't as sweet as it used to be. Where can you cut costs? And maybe you can't cut costs. Maybe you just got to put some sweat equity in it. Just like when everyone else started out at the very beginning, when they bought their first rental property or they went into the first flip, right? There was this sweat equity, I know when I did my first flip, I was getting up and I had to go to that house. It was a flood house. I had to go there because I could not afford in the budget to have somebody go in underneath, because it was a crawl space, and I flooded, and rip out the air handler and take out all that insulation. Right. So that meant I had to be at that house at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. Right. I had to be there for at least 2 hours in the morning. Right. So I could be done, leave there by 6 to meet my guys at the gym. Right. Because I was still in the Army. Do that and then get off and then spend a couple more hours underneath, like 3 or 4 more hours underneath. So it took 2 days. Yeah. Right. So you look at about 8 hours, 10 hours. Right. For me to go do that, because I knew that in my budget, there's no way I could afford to pay somebody $1,500 to get all that cleared out for me, right? Get it all cleared out, put new insulation underneath, put the new vapor barrier in, right? Get all that stuff done so that HVAC guy can come in there and put the air handler in, so that was what I had to do in order to make it work,
Yeah.
So
that's it. Yeah. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. That's one of my favorite sayings.
Yep.
So while flipping or, renovating for a buy and hold, can you name one major surprise that you found that you weren't expecting?
For me, right. So I did real estate in two other states before here. Right. So, St. Louis is a union city.
Okay.
Right. So, the cost of getting licensed, trained tradesmen to do stuff is way more expensive here, right? Because I did real estate in Tennessee, did real estate in North Carolina, right? So there's no union. So like the prices are very competitive over there because it's so and so does this. But here, there's a base price they're going to charge you per hour, and it's not the people's fault that are in the company. Like one of our electricians, Troy, actually called and emailed us and let us know that, hey, our prices are changing because union dues are going to be due. Right. And then a buddy of mine who owns Two Vets Plumbing, he texted me and told me the same thing. Like, hey man, so it's just one of those things. So I say that because you got to know what kind of market you're in, right? Because that is what is going to offset. And then the amount of inspections that St. Louis has is very different than the amount of inspections I've dealt with in other states, right? The amount of inspections that you have to go through. North Carolina and Tennessee is like, hey, did you do anything that required a permit? That's the only time you need to get an inspection. Right. And then in St. Louis, right, there's nobody that's considered a real general contractor. Right. Again, in my practice in the other states I was in, so a general contractor, right, you would think they're a licensed professional. I'm not saying the general contractors here are not, professional, right? But there is no license number that they need to have in order for the state. Yeah, see, you got that look. So you can't hold anybody accountable because, like in North Carolina and Tennessee, if a general contractor bowlowed on a job, didn't do what they signed the contract, didn't finish out, you could just report them to the state because they had a license number, right? Here in St. Louis, there isn't that. The only requirement is to have enough general liability insurance and your business needs to be registered with the state. That's it. And then you can pull permits. And you can call yourself a general contractor. So yes, that is the biggest thing. So if you're flipping in your state or in another state or whatever the case may be, you probably need to find out what those laws are, right? It's pretty easy Google search, right? Or if you have a realtor that you're dealing with in those areas, ask them. Because they live there, they should know, right? You know, they want to make that commission on finding you a rental property, investment property, or a commercial property, right? Because I mean, commercial brokers, they're making sweet money if they can close on these big deals, right? So make them work for it, right? Ask them, hey, what's the requirement? Are you guys union? Right? With general contractors, do they have to have a license number? You know, ask them these questions, right? They want your business. It's part of it. They're supposed to have your best interests at heart, right? With these buildings and what you're buying. So ask the questions. Those are the ones. There's inspections and then, you know, the trades. What's it going to cost?
Okay. You know? All right. So let's focus on your team real quick.
Okay.
How many people are on your team currently?
So excluding me and my wife as the office manager. So we got 5 admin team members and then we have 2 in-house staff. So 5, 6, 7. And then if you count us 2, we're 9. We're a little heavy compared to a lot of other property management companies, especially because, again, we bought into a franchise, right? So we're a little heavy compared to the number of doors we have. But again, I'm thinking further out, right? Because when we intake properties or bring on new clients, right, we want them to have that level of service that we're not. You know what I mean? They're expecting us to be a professional company, right? So be professional. Again, profits over serviceability, right? Servicing. Like I understand that I'm willing to spend the money on payroll, right? To make sure that when we bring in people, right, and bring in new clients, bring in new properties, that level of service is still going to be very high. So I'm okay, again, not paying myself very much of anything, which is all right, because again, I have other streams of income that kind of offset what I should be making, but I'd rather pay my team well, right, and give them raises and give them bonuses and, you know, offset costs for them than to make a lot of money for myself.
Got it. So your key, you said it's you and your wife are pretty much the manager. So shall I take that as she's your key person or executive?
She kind of, no, I mean, she works for free, right? Because she's not on payroll. So I'm glad that the time she puts in, but she still runs our household. She's still the boss of that, right? So she's there to kind of make sure things are going. Like, I got a guy, Joe, came with a very good hire. Like I went through probably 3 guys for the position he's in right now, right? That we had to change out because again, it's about building the right people. Because especially when you start out, right? You're kind of a startup. You're building people in from the ground up, right? Same thing that I've always been telling people, and even in the military, like your promotion or your acceleration or what you're doing right now is only limited. Your growth is only limited to you as an individual. I won't cap your growth, right? If you can do the 10 level skill tasks and get the 20 and 30 level skill tasks, then you should be compensated for set. But you got to put it in the work, right? That's like day one. Yeah. That's what I tell people all the time. Like I'm not going to hold any punches, So yeah, I mean, she's going to be there, of course, to make sure that I'm not getting all crazy, right? And I'm not like, because sometimes I have my bad days too. And like, I just don't like it when clients or people talk to our team a little bit different, right? Because they're not talking to me, right? Or sometimes I had a client thinking that Shannon was talking to them, that she was an admin, like, you know what I mean? Like, actually, no, you're actually talking to the co-owner of the company. Like, So yeah, bring it on so it's like I said, so we got 5, 6, 7, 7 plus us 2 makes 9. So that's us. I mean, she's good, but I think everyone on the team has their role to play, right? Yeah. It's like sports. If everyone's doing their job, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing in the right position, right place and going 100%, everything works out. So that's
absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean? So they come in, everyone comes in doing kind of the stand, especially our admin team, they come in doing the base task, right? And from that base task, we're going to find out how much they can do, how organized are they, right? Attention to detail. And then we start moving them to starting doing more stuff on the back end. Everyone will still do the 10 level tasks, like the basics, and, maybe looking at addressing, doing lease renewals or stuff like that, right? That's still kind of a base task that we still have our senior admin team members doing it, right? While we fill the other ones in. Because again, we've gone through a lot of admin team members too, because they just don't make the grade, right? It's just not, they're just not working out, I think last year, I don't know, probably went through 6 or 7 guys in our in-house crew. Yep, just because they just weren't working out. They wanted to get paid X amount. And okay, if you got the skill set, I'll pay you. Okay, sign this contract, but they weren't. They didn't. They weren't doing what they said they could do. And then old saying had an army, you just got to shoot a hostage. So I just go to the job site. I'm there to go check on work. Work's not getting done because we're on a timeline. Right? Because again, jobs got to get done on the timeline in order for the company to make a profit.
Yeah.
Right. You're getting paid now. You're getting paid whether we make a profit or not. So like your interests don't align with the overall interest and the goal of the company, right? Because you just want to make sure you get paid. Your $1,200 a week, where we should have been done with this already. So they fire them, just let them go. Just tell them to pack up their tools and go. Right? Come by the office on Friday, pick up your last check. So.
Yeah. Got it. I got it. All right. So, you've probably heard this saying, to whom much is given, much is required. So my question to you now is, how do you give back?
So, I mean, for us, it's just really like on a daily thing. It's nothing like, hey, we're giving money for this, we're giving money for that, right? But I think it's just overall how you interact inside your community, right? Because, St. Louis, there are pockets. I'm sure people, when they look up St. Louis, like murder capital of the United States, per capita, way more murder rate than it is in Chicago, because that's all you see on the news, Chicago, right? And St. Louis is kind of a little dangerous city, right? But it's got their good parts, right? So I say all that to say, we have good people that live in some of these neighborhoods, right? That are not like, super fancy, right? But they should be respected. The home should be in well shaped where they're living comfortably. It doesn't need to be the Taj Mahal, but their basic necessities need to be met, right? And then kind of understand what they're going through. Like, if they're having a problem, that you have to be an advocate, right, for your client or for your residents, right, in my opinion, to the owner, and have them understand, like, hey, remind them that we're all going through hard times right now, right? Like, let's give them, they've been a great tenant. They came online letting us know that their hours are getting cut, or they got something going on personal in their family, or what the case may be, right? And be there for them.
Okay.
I mean, last year, it was Christmas Eve. Water went out the day prior at one of our units down in the city, right? I got told, and I loaded up my truck with a bunch of bottled water. I was going to bring it down there, right? And, to figure out if I couldn't get the water back on. My father-in-law came with me, and luckily we were able to get the water onto the whole building but one unit, right? Because the one unit had a leak problem, and I had to explain, like, listen, we got all the water onto all the other units. We can't take away from everyone else because you got a water. Like, we're gonna figure it out. So we were able to get one. We're able for them to get one water source, which is in the kitchen. Right? It was horrible. They couldn't take a shower. Like, but all the neighbors were there. They were thankful that we got at least going with bottled water. Kind of like get them through the stuff. But like, that was just something again that we did. So nothing like directly. I can like, we give like 10, 20, 30, whatever amount of money to this thing, but that's kind of what we try to do on a daily basis with our residents and just around our community.
Okay. Gotcha. So Nathan, before you became this successful person that I see in front of me, give our listeners a little bit of your backstory, like where you grew up, how was your upbringing, what is your past, what in your past shifted your mindset into becoming this person you are today?
I think I probably had evolutions throughout my whole life, to be 100% honest. I grew up, my dad was in the Air Force, right? So I was born in the Philippines. So of course that's how my dad was stationed there as a young airman at the time, right? And then did a little bit of moving while I was in the Air Force. Spent most of my time, grew up in Florida and Fort Walton Beach, right up in there in the Panhandle. My dad got a really good job there with the Special Operations Group over there. He was kind of a medical guy, right? He did medical logistics and he tested on a lot of stuff. He wasn't doing anything crazy, right? But then I kind of grew up in Florida, so I had that kind of Florida upbringing. With my mom, not being American, a true American citizen, right? It was a lot of no, we're not doing that for you. You need to figure that stuff out. So like I remember growing up, and if I wanted money to go buy baseball cards or comic books or go to the movies with my friends, right? I had to go out there and cut some grass, go out there and mow people's grass, wash the cars, pick up dog poop. I didn't like it growing up, right? I was like, I don't understand why we don't ever have any money, just a naive, young kid that didn't know anything. And again, this goes about not really your family when I grew up talking about money, right? Because you have no idea, right? You don't know what a cost of anything is, right? You're a kid. You're not very smart. Your frontal lobe of your brain has not matured, has not grown into what it is. And that's, you know what I mean? So you have no idea, right? So I did that, played sports in high school, had an opportunity to play on Division II football. And I kind of again, here goes another evolution of growing up, right? Thought I knew everything at that age, right? Thought I knew everything. Of course I did not. I probably knew less when I was 19 and 20 years old than I did when I was 13, 14, 15 growing up, right? Because I was just dumb, right? And just still kind of hung out with some friends that were not doing the right things, right? Coming home from college and, buddy of mine got pulled over and got arrested with a bunch of legal stuff he should not have had in his car. Right? I literally got out of his car and, got dropped off at another buddy's house because I wasn't going to go hang out and continue doing what they were doing, right? I just said, man, me and so we ain't going to, let's just go back to his because he's like the only one having an apartment. I was like, I ain't going home, right? I can't go home like this. So went over there and found out the next day they got arrested. And I was like, I got to change my life around because, you know what I mean? What am I going to do? Right? I'm going to school in the summertime because, again, I barely did enough when I was in college, right, to pass. So I was like, okay, I need to just, figure this out. And then, my dad's like, well, you got to figure it out.
Yeah.
So went to the recruiting station, kind of talked to all the recruiters, you know what I mean? And that's how it went. So, and I joined the Army. Luckily I joined the Army and, and again, next evolution of adapting and changing, right? Getting reinstilled the discipline of doing stuff, knowing that, hey, now you are doing something for the greater good. You are a gear in the machine, right? You are a part of a bigger construct. So that happened, right? So again, I joined I was pre 9/11, right? So I was going in, I'm gonna do my 6 years, I'm gonna be all you can be, which they brought that commercial back. Right, they figured it out. That's what got most of us in, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I was going to do, right? September 11th happened, and that kind of changed. So I found myself in Afghanistan a few months after that. Was there for about 9 or 10 months. I came home for my first son to be born. I was home 3 weeks, and I went to Iraq for a year. And then, saw somebody doing some cool stuff. He kind of knew me through somebody else. I gave him my standard name line. I got an email to try out for this unit, and that's what I did. So I was there for about 12 years, and then I went to go back to the conventional Army. Went to Hawaii because I needed a break on my second marriage. And my wife's like, "Hey, you need to do something." So again, evolutions, right?
Yeah.
So I was doing this. Had a recheck. New wife says, "Hey, you got to change."
Yeah.
I went to Hawaii, so then I had to figure out what I was going to do, right? Because again, I'm always a pre-planner. I'm nervous. I'm a nervous person. I'm always trying to figure out stuff ahead of time, right? Bad anxiety, I guess, made it worse in the military. So I had to figure out what I had to do and I had to grow up. So I figured, hey, let the Army pay for my education. All right. So I got my degree. Business management, focused on technology and network, kind of like business, really from Troy University, is like business management and technology management, meaning, still doing business and integration with like technology, right? Fancy terminology, meaning it's pretty much it. You're still the business management major, but you're going to focus on integrating new technology to be more efficient with your business practices, right? So that was it. So I got that. So I kind of figured out, okay, well, do I really want a 9 to 5? Do I want to go work for Amazon or try to work for Amazon or do something like, start reading those books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, started listening to podcasts, started listening to podcasts and mentioned different books, started downloading those books, started opening my mind, because you can literally look at it in my dang, what that's slipping my mind, the app Audible, right?
Yeah.
Like your evolution of what you're reading. Like if you were into Audible and you're starting to do that stuff, it saves everything. You should go back and look, see if what you're reading or what your content, that you're bringing into yourself, how has it evolved, right? They should be able to tell a storyline. Like I think it's pretty cool when you say, here, look at what I was reading before and look where I'm reading now. So, because again, it's like about money, about real estate, and it's about businesses and integration with EOS and systems and process, and there's a little bit about balancing work-life balance and kind of like stuff like that, so you can kind of see how you integrate. But then again, that's just another evolution. So before I retired, I had to figure that out. So it's always a growing stage. Started flipping houses to build, I was telling you, my war chest, so I can have options.
There you go.
Because money, and I hate, people hate to say it, but money will provide you options, right? It does.
It does.
But money is not going to put in good work ethic.
Yeah.
Right? Sacrifice, understanding that things. And then again, if again, military is taught, not just me, myself, but your family, about sacrifice. Because, when you're away, you're training, you're downrange, or you're doing something, like your family's still there trying to do everything that you're doing when you're there, when you're not there. Right. So then when you and you start a business or any business or a side hustle that turns into a business, right? There's hours that you were probably devoting to your family right now that are being taken away. Is your family able to do that? Right. Especially if you're going to build your vision of your side hobby, your side hustle you got right now, into a legitimate business. Right. Do you want to do that? Right. Just like investing. Right. What level of investing do you want? Right. So you have to balance that out based off of your personality, and is your family going to be okay with you devoting those extra hours? Right?
Correct.
That's the other caveat to all that, right? Everyone remembers and sees, oh man, you're making this money, you're doing all this, you're doing all that. They don't remember things where you were struggling, where you were working every day 12 hours. Like I still have a sleeping bag in my office right now and a blow-up mattress, right? Just in case I gotta stay, because I owe it to my team to get my stuff done, so that I can help and integrate, train, mentor, and lead, right? Just like the military taught us, them to be able to be successful in what they're doing.
Absolutely.
You're always evolving, you're always growing, right? So flipping
Absolutely.
chest, right? And then taking this jump into getting into property management, buying into a franchise, again, learning experience. Boy, do lawyers have some weird language when they put it in there, where it doesn't catch it until you are paying some royalties or asking some kind of questions, right? Don't take anything away from franchises, right? But if you buy into a franchise, if you want to start a business or whatever, it's good, because it's a business in a box. They're supposed to help you, right?
Yeah.
But you got to be that squeaky wheel, right?
Absolutely.
So it's always evolving.
Okay. Well, again, Nathan, it's been a blast having you as our guest today. So as we close out, tell our listeners where they can learn more about you, get in touch with you, and learn about all the fabulous things you have going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, so again, I'm sure Cedric's going to post it. Like if you're just looking about property management, you can always reach out to us if you're in the St. Louis area. If you're on Instagram, I'm Nonstop Nate. You can find me on Instagram, of course, and then on Facebook is on it for Nathan Cross. Pretty simple stuff. You can reach out to me there. Hit up Cedric. You can get in contact. You can do the email introduction. We can jump on a call if you have any kind of questions or anything or what you got going on. I'm easy to reach out to.
Great. So Nathan, again, I want to thank you for your time today and all the wisdom you have provided to my listeners. It's greatly appreciated.
No, I appreciate you having me on. Like I said, I wish everyone good luck and invest in their investment ventures, whether it's big investments or small investments, right? Because everything matters.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you for tuning in to the Service to Syndication Podcast, where we want to provide value to you and your investing business. Please tune in to our next episode, where we will interview another fantastic investing professional. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Service to Syndication Podcast. We want you to know that we love and appreciate your support, and we are grateful about being a part of your journey to becoming a successful real estate entrepreneur. Please share this episode with a friend who you think will get a lot out of what you just heard. Send it to someone who you know is interested in real estate and dreams of having it all and being the best they can be in all areas of life. And if this was really valuable, share it on your social media stories and timelines. Thank you for watching and listening. Now go be great.